As I stepped into the room, my heart sank at the sight before me. My beloved accessories and cherished clothes were nowhere to be found. Panic surged through me as I reached for my cell phone to call the police. Just then, my mother-in-law burst into laughter, her voice laced with a cruel amusement. Predictably upset, I see. What do you mean by predictably? She said, clearly enjoying my stunned expression. Her next words were beyond belief. Yes, that's right. I cleaned out your things. They were unnecessary after all. I was speechless. Why would she dispose of my belongings without my permission, deeming them unnecessary? Just as I was about to confront her, she began to explain. How long do you plan to stay in our house? Leave as soon as possible. I cleaned everything up to make it easier for you to go. You should be grateful. Her words made it clear. The mistreatment was meant to drive me out. If that's what she wanted, I had no intention of trying to get along with her anymore. Understood. I'll move out, I said. If you understand, then make it sooner. Please move out soon. Yes, but please give me a week to find a new place. Fine, I'll allow that. Just make sure you're gone in a week. With a week to prepare, I set out to find a new home. I would find a place and have my revenge. My name is Mary, and I'm a freelance illustrator. I took the leap into freelancing 3 years ago after graduating from vocational school. After working at an animation production company and saving up, I decided to go independent. When I told my husband Ken about my decision, I was relieved by his positive response. Mary, if that's the path you want to take, I won't oppose it. Give it your all. I'll support you, he said. Ken and I have been together since vocational school, maintaining our relationship through different careers, and we got married in our 3rd year of working adults. This year marks our 8th anniversary, and I'm incredibly grateful for his support. Despite initial challenges and frequent disappointments as a freelancer, I persisted. I continued to draw and post on social media, and eventually one of my drawings gained unexpected attention. This led to my rise as a prominent illustrator on social media. Jobs from companies and apps for sticker designs started rolling in, and my monthly income soon exceeded $8,000. I'm truly grateful for your encouragement. It's the result of your hard work, Mary. You're amazing, Ken said. I can't thank him enough. If he had opposed my decision to become independent, none of this would have been possible. I wouldn't have achieved this level of income if it weren't for my persistent efforts. Although I haven't saved up a lot yet, my goal is to buy a house and create my own workspace. While I'm grateful for the increase in work, our current flat is becoming increasingly cramped, making it difficult to store important documents. One day, my husband suggested a potential solution. Why don't we move to my parents' house? There's a spare room there, and it's only my mom living there now. What do you think? I was taken aback. Really? Are you sure that's okay? He reassured me. Yes, I've already spoken to my mom about it. Ever since my dad left with his affair partner when I was little, that room has been empty. Mom said it's fine for you to use it. It was a generous offer, and I saw no reason to decline. I agreed to the move, and 2 weeks later, we visited his family's house. My mother-in-law greeted us warmly. It's been a while, Mary, she said. Yes, it has, I replied. I've heard from Ken that you're a popular illustrator now. Oh, it's nothing like that, she said modestly. Feel free to use the room as you like. Come in, she invited us with a smile. I felt at ease with my kind mother-in-law and husband and was determined to focus on my creative work in this new environment. Thus, a new chapter of my life began at my in-law's house. At that time, I was unaware of the underlying dynamics within the family. 3 months after moving in, I had settled into the new surroundings. This job is done, I thought, pleased with the improved work environment and the significant boost in my income. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, 2 months later, life took an unexpected turn. My husband was suddenly laid off from his company. What should I do now? He sighed as soon as he got home. I was concerned. What happened? Was there trouble at work? Are you okay? Was there an issue with a client? He had been working in sales at a major trading company, handling industrial products since graduating from vocational school. I had initially thought it was a minor issue with his sales performance, but his response was completely unexpected. I've been fired, he said. What? I was taken aback. I mean, you've been laid off? Yes, he explained. But why? You've been working so hard. How could this happen? I asked, struggling to grasp the situation. They said our department was underperforming and that maintaining us was a burden. They gave me a choice between a drastic pay cut or a decent severance package. It's effectively downsizing, he said. I was at a loss for words. I felt helpless, unable to comfort him as he faced this unexpected turn of events. The company he had dedicated years to had discarded him so easily. The next day, my husband began spending his time idly at home. I hoped he would quickly start looking for a new job, but he didn't seem ready to take that step. It looked like the responsibility of supporting us now fell on me. Determined to make up for the lost income, I threw myself into my work with even more dedication. Sometimes I worked nonstop from morning till night, barely finding time to eat. I wondered if I was pushing myself too hard, but the results were undeniable. At the end of the month, a substantial amount of money was deposited into my account, an amount I had never seen before. I called my husband over to share the news. "Hey, you don't need to rush into finding a job right now. We earned $440,000 this month alone. I think we can manage if we don't spend it wastefully," I said. "Wow, that's impressive," he said, his voice tinged with surprise. But there was a coldness in his eyes that made me question why I had shared my income details with him. The next day, my mother-in-law's persistent demands began. "Mary, come here for a moment," she called loudly from downstairs as I was focused on my work. "What is it?" I asked, pausing my tasks and heading downstairs. She stood in the living room and said, "Do the laundry for me." "But I haven't finished my work yet," I replied. "You can do that later. You've been quiet so far, but isn't it about time you did some housework? You're a daughter-in-law, after all," she said directly. Faced with her blunt words, I reflected on her position and realized she had a point. I understood the expectations placed on me. I had been so absorbed in my work that I had neglected all the housework, leaving it entirely to my mother-in-law. I realized I might have been wrong. "Understood. I'll do the laundry as soon as I finish this work," I said. True to my word, once I completed my tasks, I did the laundry and also cleaned the living room. I thought a break like this might be necessary sometimes. But since that day, my mother-in-law had become increasingly demanding. "You're always drawing, like a child," she said. "If you have time for that, you should go shopping. I can't imagine your paintings ever selling." Her criticisms piled on more household chores, and I found myself swamped with daily tasks. I was even woken up before 5 a.m. to prepare breakfast, leading to chronic sleep deprivation. My concentration faltered, and my productivity significantly decreased. Although my income hadn't dropped significantly yet, I worried that I might not be able to continue working if this continued. I decided to discuss the issue with my husband when we were alone. "Your mother seems to dislike me lately and is constantly picking on me. I don't mind doing chores, but being assigned tasks from morning to night every day is affecting my ability to focus on work. I need you to talk to her and ask her to stop." "What a hassle," he replied. "Why don't you tell her yourself? Besides, if you can't manage work, why don't you move somewhere else? You have an income, after all." "What? Why would you say that? I'm working so hard while you've been lagging around without looking for a job," I responded, feeling frustrated. My husband had a point, but it was difficult for me to address these issues directly with my mother-in-law. He shrugged off my concerns and went to bed, leaving us unable to have a proper conversation. And so, half a year passed. I was mentally and physically drained from the relentless mistreatment by my mother-in-law. Despite my exhaustion, my husband showed no signs of looking for a job. My work progress had slowed considerably, and my income had dropped to less than half of its peak. "I can't take this anymore," I thought one day. Overwhelmed, I left the house and ended up at a nearby park. Sitting on a bench, I felt a small sense of relief. After about an hour, I returned home, but the thought of working seemed unbearable, so I decided to take a nap in my room. When I opened the door, I was stunned. "What's this?" I couldn't believe my eyes. All my favorite accessories and cherished clothes were gone. I panicked and was about to call the police when I heard my mother-in-law's voice behind me. Predictably upset. "I see," she said with a mocking tone. "What do you mean, predictably?" I asked, bewildered. Her laughter was sharp and dismissive. "Yes, that's right. I cleared out your stuff. It was all unnecessary." I was speechless. Why had she disposed of my belongings without asking? As I tried to process her actions, she continued, "How long do you plan to stay here? Just leave already. I cleared everything to make it easier for you to go. You should be grateful." Her words made it clear. All this mistreatment was meant to drive me out of the house. If that's what she wanted, I no longer had any desire to get along with her. "I understand. I'll move out," I said. "Good, make sure you do it soon," she replied. "Yes, but please give me a week to arrange a new place," I requested. "Fine, you have a week. Just make sure you're gone after that," she agreed. I quickly found a new place to move to. Initially considering a detached house, I ultimately chose a luxury high-rise apartment to make a statement. I was leaving not only my mother-in-law, but also my husband, who was lazily depending on my income and showing no effort to find a job. Fortunately, I had saved enough money before my income dropped, which I used for this move. I signed the lease with the real estate agent and was ready to leave at any time. When the week was up, I packed up and prepared to leave. On the day I was set to depart, I filed for divorce from my husband. "Did you sign this and send it back to the court?" I asked. "Huh? What's this?" he responded, confused. "This is a summons from the court." "Why are we suddenly talking about divorce?" he asked, visibly bewildered. "At first, I felt sympathy for you when you were laid off, but your refusal to look for a job and your disregard for how your mother was treating me have left me questioning the point of staying married. Even if that's the case, does getting divorced mean you're leaving this house?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I hadn't mentioned it before, but I'm leaving today." "Today? But where will you go? What will you do?" "I've already found a new place," I replied. "Remember, you were the one who suggested I move out." "Are you really okay with this?" he asked, his tone a mix of confusion and disbelief. I couldn't help but laugh. "Am I okay? I'm more concerned about a future with you. I'm done here." Finally convinced, my husband agreed to the divorce. I was relieved to be free of the obligation to support him. Next, it was time to address my mother-in-law. Before leaving, I confronted her about the mistreatment. "Why did you make my life so miserable?" "The harassment started after I mentioned my income. There must have been something inconvenient for you." "Amy, thank you for everything so far," she said with a dismissive attitude. "Honestly, I'm relieved I won't have to see your face anymore." "Why did you start treating me badly?" I pressed. "Was it just because of my income?" "It's not a big deal, really," she said. "I didn't like that you were earning more than Ken. You were making $40,000 a month at one point, more than your husband. A wife should earn less to save her husband's face. Besides," she added, "Ken was paying for the household expenses even when he was struggling after being laid off. He's such a good kid, unlike you." I was stunned. All this negativity because of such a petty reason, and she believed my husband was footing all the bills. I couldn't wait to see how they managed without me. They were bound to face difficulties soon, but I kept that to myself. "Well, I understand now," I said coldly. "A wife who can't support her husband should leave. Goodbye." With those final words, I left their house. On the way to my new luxury apartment, I stopped by the post office to send the divorce papers back to court, formally severing all ties with my husband and his mother. I had no intention of helping them if they struggled. Once I arrived at my new apartment, I started arranging my belongings. The spacious room and ample workspace were perfect. It was time to focus on my work. After unpacking, I dove straight into it. A month later, I received a call from my ex-husband. What could he possibly want? I ignored it, as I was busy, but the calls kept coming. Annoyed, I reluctantly answered the phone. "What do you want?" "I'm busy right now," I said. "Mary, where are you?" he asked. "I'm at home, working. What do you need?" I replied. "I'd like to talk to you in person. Can we meet?" "I don't see why we need to meet. It's such a hassle," I retorted, about to hang up when I heard my former mother-in-law's voice on the line. "Mary, it's been a while. I have something to discuss. Can we meet?" Her voice, usually so assertive, sounded almost pleading. Reluctantly, I agreed. "Fine, but I don't want to go out. Come to my house. I'll send Ken the address." After hanging up, I sent the location to my ex-husband, wondering why they wanted to meet. Once everything was settled, I returned to my work. About 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. They had arrived. "So, this is your place. It's amazing," they remarked. "If you just want to chat, leave. If there's something serious, speak quickly," I said, trying to cut to the point. Wait. Open the door," they pleaded. On the monitor, I saw my ex-husband and his mother. I unlocked the door and let them in. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang again. "Please wait a moment," I said, opening the door to greet them. They seemed stunned by the appearance of my home. "Incredible. It's like a hotel," they exclaimed. "Mary, you live in such a gorgeous place." Their reaction was almost like that of tourists, despite supposedly having a serious matter to discuss. "So, what do you want?" I asked, trying to sound as blunt as possible. "If there's no real issue, please leave. You're interrupting my work." Suddenly, they spoke in a panic. Mary, we need your help. We can't afford our living expenses. Even our electricity, gas, and water have been cut off. Could you help us even a little? Why should I? I asked. I had no intention of helping them, especially after all they'd put me through. Don't joke with me. Why should I help you? I said, incredulous. You live in such a grand place, you can afford to help a little, they argued. We were once family, and I admit I made mistakes. Can't you help us just a bit? Their audacity was beyond belief. I worked incredibly hard to get here, I replied, my frustration rising. Even before our divorce, I was supporting your lifestyle despite the harassment from my mother-in-law that cost me jobs. You wouldn't understand the effort I put in, you just exploited me and relied on my income. Their silence was all the response I needed. This conversation is over. If you come back, I'll call the police. Goodbye. I never want to see you again. Wait, Mary, so what should we do now? They asked, almost impressively persistent despite everything. That's not my problem. You could start working part-time or find other means of support. Figure it out yourselves. I've made it clear I'm not inclined to help those who've been ignoring me, I said, my voice rising with pent-up frustration. I yelled at his mother, and their shocked expressions told me they were finally grasping their situation. They hurriedly left, and I felt a sense of satisfaction watching them go. Their desperation, so different from their previous arrogance, was unforgettable. Helping them was out of the question. I returned to my work, determined to move on. A month later, I finished work early one day and planned to enjoy some free time. I remembered I hadn't opened the living room curtains, so I pulled them back and glanced outside. To my surprise, I saw my former mother-in-law and ex-husband walking around my apartment building. They're still persistent, I thought, noting that they didn't come to my door. They were probably mindful of my warning. Curious, I decided to take a closer look. I watched them from the window and then made a call. Hello? What are you doing? What do you mean, what are we doing? My ex-husband replied, sounding defensive. We're just walking around. I can see you from here. Don't make me call the police, I said. No, we're here, but we're not doing anything wrong, he insisted. So what do you want? You came to ask for my help, didn't you? Well, yes, but I've started working as a contract worker, and I hadn't received my salary yet. Could you lend me some money? I'll pay you back, he pleaded. It took being cornered to finally get you to ask for help. It's good you found a job. If you're working, you should be able to borrow from someone else before coming to me. Goodbye. I ended the call abruptly. About an hour later, I heard police sirens in the distance. Excitedly, I approached the window and saw my ex-husband and his mother being escorted into a police car. I hadn't called the police myself. Someone else must have reported their suspicious behavior. After this incident, they seemed to have completely given up on relying on me. I didn't see them again, and I made sure to delete my ex-husband's contact information and change my phone number. From now on, I was living my life for myself.